Hey, what's up, everybody? Izzy here, getting ready to jump into episode number 28. The big number 28 of another effing podcast with a very special guest, a very exclusive interview with one of the stars of last season's NBC's The Voice. Kat Perkins will be joining me. Should be a very, very great interview. Well, I know it's a great interview because I did it. Talking all about the show, all about her brand new single called Fearless, and her cover of Barracuda, and her touring plans, and a whole lot more. Great interview. Look forward to everybody hearing that. We'll be joined by the fantasy football guru of the show, the Great Bobboo. Jeff Bauer will be joining us to talk fantasy football. And I got one story, one thing to rant about, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But, of course, I want to thank our sponsor, Rockstar Leatherworks, leather bands and watches. Very cool leather bands and watches. I don't know how to keep describing them because they are so awesome. They are so amazing. I need a whole wardrobe of them, Lee, because they are just that damn cool. Good stuff. RockstarLeatherworks.com. Check them out. RockstarLeatherworks.com. You'll buy one. You'll want more. You'll be happy with not only the product, but the service and the promptness of completion of your order. RockstarLeatherworks.com. Also, I just want to tell you, if you want to help the show, if you want to support the show, not only by supporting the sponsor, you can directly support the show by donating via PayPal. Izzy.presley@gmail.com is the email address via PayPal. Izzy.presley@gmail.com. I got some big things I want to do. I need a couple $100 to do it. And if the listeners help me out, that just makes it all that much better. Because what that will get us is more content, an app, and more content. That's what we need. That's what we will have. Just need a couple $100 to do that. And we will be golden. Izzy.presley@gmail.com is the PayPal. Find me on Twitter, Izzy_Presley. On the Facebook, it is Another Effin' Podcast, Facebook.com/Another Effin' Podcast. And you can email me, Izzy@IzzyPresleyProductions.com. And the website, if you need promotion help, PR help, media relations help, is IzzyPresleyProductions.com. With that said, and without further ado, let us jump into Another Effin' Podcast.
Hi, this is Bobby Brown, and welcome to Another Fucking Podcast.
You kids with your loud music and your Dan Fogelberg, your Zima, hula hoops, and Pac-Man video games, don't you see? People today have attention spans that can only be measured in nanoseconds.
Hello, Hollywood, hello, world, and hello, my loyal minions. It is good to see you, and it's always good to be seen. Izzy Presley here for another very special edition of Another Effin' Podcast. Going to be joined by Kat Perkins of NBC's The Voice. Last season, she was a semi-finalist. And no, I'm not laughing inside right now because I just said semi. Okay, maybe just a little bit. Lots of great stuff. Jam-packed show. Jam-packed show. We will have the Kat interview playing her new single, which is called Fearless. You can go on iTunes right now and buy that. And then also buy her cover of Barracuda. We'll talk about all of that in the interview. And if you were a hard rock and metal fan and you're following on the Spreaker page, click onto my shows tab and you will find that I have a show called Under the Covers. It is a show that I did on Rockin' 101 in St. Cloud, Minnesota when I got my start in radio. And it's cover songs. It's a hard rock, heavy metal cover show. And I will be playing Kat's version of the Barracuda on this week's show, which will go live on Friday night. That will be available to download. Just go follow on Spreaker, and you will get not only the content for the show that you're listening to right now, another effing podcast. You'll also get the content for Under the Covers, and this is one of the reasons I'm asking for donations for the show. I don't want to charge people to listen to the show. I don't want to go down that route because I don't want to lose a whole lot of listeners. But if people open up their hearts a little bit, open up their wallets a little bit to try to help out the show, this is what the money will go for, because I can get a full year subscription to the site, which will give me unlimited content. So that means every episode of this show, another Evan podcast, will be up there. But also every episode of Under the Covers will be up there too. I won't have to delete one to put a new one up. So it's for you. It really is. Plus, with that money also, I can get an app through that page. So you can download the Another Effin' Podcast app and get all that content right on your smartphone too. If you just want to get this show on your smartphone, get it on your iTunes, you can go into iTunes, search for Another Effin' Podcast, click that subscribe button, and rate the show and give me a whole lot of good feedback. And yay, that would be awesome too. The PayPal is izzy.presley@gmail.com. If you don't want to, hey, that's fine. That's great. I'm just happy that you're listening. It all matters that people enjoy the show. They have fun listening to the show, because that's what it really is all about. And, yeah, we'll have a jam-packed show with Kat, her new single, and the fantasy football. I want to stop saying guru, because everybody's using guru now. So he is the Great Bobboo, Jeff Bauer, instead of the Great Gazoo. Get it? Flintstones fans, get it? Okay, so he will be coming up this segment. We'll be talking some fantasy football. We'll get into the Adrian Peterson bit just a little bit, because I don't want to spend too much time on that. Everybody else is flapping their gums about it, and I'm just sick of hearing everybody's opinion, because everybody thinks that they're right. Nobody knows exactly what goes on behind closed doors, yada, yada, yada. None of my business. I don't care. But we'll talk about that a little bit when old good old Bobber gets on the show. But before we get into Jeff, pardon me while I sip on some water. Before we get into fantasy football talk, there's something very important that I need to get off my chest, that I need to remove from my man boobs. And it's not the gray hair coming out of my nipples or my ears or my nose. That's for another time and a different razor. Living in LA, and this also, people in Minneapolis can deal with this also. The bikers. I'm not talking about the Harley riders or your crotch rocket guys. I'm talking about your bicyclists. I knew it was bad in Minneapolis when you're in the middle of a blizzard during rush hour. You've got 2 feet of snow, that fresh snow that's still falling, and you got these assholes out there riding down the middle of the road thinking they're a car on their fucking bicycle. Okay, I get it. You don't want to create gas, blah, 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 blah. You're a tree hugger. That's fine. That's great. The world needs those. But you're in the middle of a freaking blizzard. Take the bus. Take the train. You can do it for 1 or 2 days. You don't need to be out there holding up traffic, because traffic is fucked already because you're in the middle of a fucking blizzard. But no, douchebag has to be out there on his bike in the middle of a blizzard. Well, this is what we're dealing with out here in Southern California right now, in Los Angeles. Los Angeles. They just passed this law where you need to give bicyclists 3 feet. Hey, that's fine. You don't want to hit anybody and maim anybody. But the problem with the assholes out here, these douches, they ride in packs. I remember one night I'm driving down Fletcher, I think was the road, going under an underpass, under the 5. And you've got a pack of 20 bicyclists at night. This is at 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. And see, this is what these assholes do. They don't ride single file. They don't like use the bike lane. They take up the whole lane. So you've got cars lined up behind them waiting to get around, but they can't because these assholes have to take up the whole lane. They can't ride single file down on the side of the curb because we know it's illegal to go on the sidewalk, and why would you go on the sidewalk? I mean, there's nobody on there at 10:30 at night. Pardon me. No. They have to ride in the lane. Now, I encountered this phenomenon, and I use that term lightly. And see, the motorcycle laws out here, you can drive between cars, which is scary as shit on a bike or not, because you got these fucking bikes zipping, in between cars. Well, these asshole bicyclists do the exact same thing. Waiting to turn left, you have 2 lanes waiting to turn left. So you got these pricks coming up, and they fly in between the cars and go up and cut the other cars off that are waiting to turn left, and then proceed to be, I'm bike guy, so I'm a car, and ride in the lane and hold everybody up. I'm not saying they don't have a right to be on the road. I'm saying don't be an ass. Don't be a cock. And there's 3 of them, and one of them, their little leader, it was like Wheelie and the Chopper Gang, except douchier. It's like douchey and the 10-speed gang. This little prick, he's got a GoPro on his head, on his stupid little helmet. I don't know, trying to get people pissed off at him so he can show video on the internet of people mad at him for riding a bike when he's acting like a douche in the first place. So these pricks, I don't know how they were able to keep up. But, stoplights, and they don't obey stoplights. They just kind of do whatever the fuck they want to do because they're bike guy, and they can do whatever they want. So I'm pulling up the intersection of Fairfax and Sunset. And there's 3 lanes, left turn lane, go straight, or turn right. And these guys decide to turn right onto Sunset. But what do? No. They don't wait for the car that's in front of them that's turning right onto Sunset, because you can't turn right onto Sunset on a red. It's one of those few places where you can't turn right on a red. Well, these pricks decide, well, we're on bikes, so we can be assholes and get in front of this other car that's waiting to turn right and sit in front of him waiting for it to turn red, and then take our merry little fucking time pedaling our little fucking 10 speeds while this fucking car is stuck. So they cut this guy off. They cut him off just because they're bike guy, and they feel that they are privileged enough that they're more important because they're riding 10 speeds. Get the fuck out of the way. They have bike lanes. Use them. No, we're on bikes. We're cars too. You're not. Get the fuck out of the way. You wonder why people get hit. That is why people get hit. And I hope little douchey and the Chopper Gang, douchey and the 10-speed gang, I hope that they heard me as I screamed obscenities at them as I was crossing Sunset, watching these douche nozzles cut a car off because, we're bike guy. And that shit happens out here all the time. And I know it happens in Minneapolis. I know it happens all over the place. But it's bad out here. It's bad. And I understand why they passed the law. But don't be a douche. We all share those roadways. You just make it worse. That's all you do. I'm not saying don't get your kids out on your bikes and go out and ride and be active. Do that. Don't be a douche nozzle. And it'll all be good. It really, really will. Now, before we get into the Great Bobboo and talk some fantasy football, I don't know if you heard me last week, but next week, I will be joined by the guitar player from Cinderella, Mr. Jeff LeBaugh, who has a brand new solo record out that is called Jeff LeBaugh, One for the Road. It is on, the record company is Rat Pack Records. They do a lot of great stuff at Rat Pack. John Karabi's on Rat Pack, George Lynch and all of his projects, I should say. I think Lita, don't quote me on Lita because I'm not absolutely positive, but they have a lot of these acts on there. And you buy stuff straight off the website and you get a lot of free stuff. You get a lot of really cool packages. Check it out, ratpackrecords.com. And you might be able to still, I'm holding, mine is one of the special limited edition 500 of the autographed covers, which Jeff on his Facebook showed pictures of him signing himself, which I would hope so. I mean, because you don't want somebody else signing his name, because that would be douchey. But the CD is called One for the Road. I will play a track off of it next week, too, leading into the interview with, oh my God, it's Jeff LeBaugh. Dude is hilarious. Expect a very fun interview. He's really, to me, he has a lot of Ace Frehley in him. The accent, the laugh. Funny guy. I can't wait for you all to hear that interview. It's going to be a good time. So it'll be another FN podcast, LeBaugh at the Bar. But with that said, it is time to go to the Skype line and bring in the Great Bobboo and talk a little fantasy football. All right, and now it is time to bring in the Grand Boobah, the Grand Baba of another effing podcast and fantasy football, Mr. Jeff Bauer. Good evening, sir. Hello, Cheeseville.
How are you doing?
Dude, I'm all right. It's ball soup up here. Or down here, I should say. 105 degrees today. Got a little rain, got a little humid. It was glorious. How are things in Cheeseville?
Got up to about 60 degrees.
Yum.
Yeah, nice and warm, you know. You gotta love it.
Oh, absolutely. Big fantasy football week. Aside of all the Adrian Peterson drama. I guess I've been away, I've been away from the computer all day. What's going on? What's the latest with the Adrian Peterson deal?
What's coming out, the biggest thing is Radisson, who's the limited sponsor for the Vikings. Like, when you thought Rick Spielman talked today, it said Radisson in the background. They've pulled their sponsorship with the Vikings until Adrian Peterson is either suspended or there's some sort of finality there, some sort of closure.
Okay.
And now Anheuser-Busch, unrelated to Adrian Peterson, is talking about pulling their $1.2 billion sponsorship to the NFL because their lack of policing these guys who are, it just seems to be a problem. I mean, it's in no other sport. I mean, all sports have their problems, but you don't see this kind of stuff happening.
No,
maybe you don't
absolutely
hear
not.
about it because the NFL is so huge, but it's one of those things where some of the stuff needs to be taken care of, and
Right.
this Adrian Peterson case to me is a very weird one because someone asked me today at work because they know I'm a Vikings fan. They said, "What do you think should happen to Peterson? That's just awful what he did." And I said, "It is. I have a kid. I would never do that to him." But it gets into a fine line. What he did is against the law, but you're talking about how a parent disciplines a child.
Right.
And
Right.
Adrian, obviously, if you talk to anyone who's actually shaken Adrian Peterson's hand, he crushes them. Imagine if he went to slap a kid
Right.
or did something to a kid. He's going to cause serious damage to them. And that's how he grew up.
Oh,
You know, there
absolutely.
are stories coming out from people saying he got the crap beat out of him in front of his friends by his dad.
Right,
And
absolutely.
it goes to old Chris Rock saying when he's talking about O.J. Simpson killing his wife. He says, I'm not saying he should have done it, but I understand.
Right. Well, and the thing is, it's like people don't realize, especially suburban soccer moms that are on all over outrage on Twitter and Facebook. They don't. And don't get me. I'm not defending what happened, but people don't. They don't understand that in some parts of the country, this happens to this day. That's how kids are disciplined. I mean, hell, anybody that grew up on a farm, in the 70s or 80s and before that, they know exactly what that situation is. Hell, my grandma was like that,
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not condoning what happened. It's not my business how he disciplines his child. It's not my business. It's nobody's business. But when there's a point of injury, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like there was gaping wounds that needed like 400 stitches. But in this day and age, what you're seeing is technically against the law.
It is, and it's it's like a class 4 felony or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately what should happen is it's similar to like if you're a teacher, you're a police officer where you do something that's against the law, you get suspended with your pay until that situation is handled.
Right.
I think part of the problem that people are having with the NFL is this whole due process thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the San Francisco 49ers, for one, with their defensive end, Ray McDonald, they're hiding behind the due process.
Right.
These guys pay their lawyers thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially in Adrian Peterson's case, to prolong this as long as they can.
Yes.
And the Vikings are getting a lot of heat because Rick Spielman came on TV today and he goes, "We would do this. We would do this to make sure the legal process played out, no matter what player it was on our team." Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. Okay.
Right.
I call that, like, if it's Matt Asiata who does that, he is so quickly off the team.
Right. Absolutely.
Well,
the thing is, I think people are forgetting too that as soon as this stuff came about, and I mean this came about before we all knew about it too. This started in like July, I believe, or something like that. He was, I mean, as far as all the reports go, he was always cooperative. He showed up. When the indictment and the warrant, he turned himself in, and I mean, he's very upfront about the whole thing. It's not like he was hiding and running from it and hiding behind lawyers.
I totally agree. I mean, and Adrian Peterson is a guy you don't hear a bad word about.
Right, until now.
Someone saying he did this or that. Other than the fact that, I mean, I don't, he's going all the way back to the 20, 30 years ago about child abuse, like how he was raised and everything,
Yep.
And I'm just thinking when he was growing up, did they have condoms? Because someone should really tell him that those exist.
Yeah, this is true. He's like the Sean Kemp of the NFL.
Yes, what I find funny is people are they don't even talk about that.
No.
Like, and this is and one thing that I think about a lot. So I like Adrian Peterson as a player. I wonder if what happened to him last year with the kid dying plays into effect with how he's disciplining his kids.
That could be.
Because, he heard about someone, his kid dying. He wasn't even there. He hadn't even seen the kid, I don't think, in his life.
Right.
He was illegitimate. And I almost wonder if that got him to be more involved in his own kids' lives. I mean, he's got to have one hell of a frequent flyer program with whoever he's with because they're all over the country.
Right, absolutely.
And I find that, like, they always talk about Adrian Peterson as a Bible thumper, and he's a very religious man. Like, I don't know where you went to church. When I went to church when I was a kid, that was a no-no.
Right.
We've been around with all these different women, and, nobody talks about that. And I'm not saying that they should because your personal lives are really kind of your business. But, and it's funny because I don't know if you follow Daniel Tosh on Twitter,
No.
but today he did some tweets about Adrian Peterson. He's like, just for the record, people, most athletes, I'm not saying all, but most athletes are idiots. Because people were asking him about all these guys getting suspended and stuff like that, And football is a very violent sport. I find it odd that you're cheering on these guys to basically rip the heads off the other people during the game, and then you're surprised that physical abuse is happening, domestic abuse is happening, because these people are paid to be physical.
Well,
it's not something you can turn off.
Right, exactly. And Adam Carolla had a great point too. Is like, you've got people with a 9th grade education who are, paid millions of dollars to beat the shit out of each other. And, all of these guys are concussed. They all have brain issues to some point. It's a no-brainer that, of course, this stuff would happen. And, of course, then they go back to Deacon Jones, the famous head slap comment. Do you remember that? Did you ever hear that?
Yeah.
Basically, for those of you who don't know, Deacon Jones in, I think, 1972 or 1973, this interview is from, was talking about his head slap. He's like, I use it because, it makes anybody flinch, man, woman, offensive lineman, or whatever. I mean, so obviously, I'm sure he meant it was a slip of the tongue, but, people got to remember, what this game is all about. And it all comes down to the fact that this NFL football in general, is about violence.
It is.
So
it is, and I'm not condoning child abuse. Like I said, I have a 7-year-old that I would never discipline him that way.
Right.
I don't think I've even laid a hand on him once. And there's other ways to discipline kids nowadays. Teachers and doctors have actually learned doing things that better motivate your child to be better. But we can't be too quick to judge people from the outside looking in.
Exactly.
Even if he did it. I mean, I'm more concerned that people might laugh at me when they hear this podcast, but I think it was a good learning experience for Adrian. Because I don't think he knew.
Well, I think it's a good learning experience for the league in general. And for everybody, because now, look, we're in this world of social media that your life is everybody else's life. There is no privacy anymore unless you are totally off the grid. I mean, I know a few people that don't use Facebook, they don't use Twitter, they don't use anything, they don't even have smartphones. But majority of the people, and there's a lot of people who put their whole fucking lives on Facebook. And I post a lot. I post a lot of personal stuff on there, but I do it in a joking, fun manner. But look, it's the truth. That's the world we live in right now.
Yeah, it's funny how that has become the way it is, and I hope we kind of come to an understanding in these situations like this. What is going to be the proper way to handle these situations? But I'm telling you right now, and I had changed my mind. I had told you, last week, owners of Adrian Peterson should overreact. I'm telling you, I think he'll probably play this weekend because the commissioner and the NFL executives can't work that fast.
Right.
In meeting out a suspension that this is going to be. But after this week, I don't really see him playing anymore this year.
Yeah.
Unless something drastically changes.
Well, for those owners out there that do have Adrian Peterson, what would you suggest for what is out there in most leagues' waiver wires?
You know what's funny is I've never seen a week in fantasy football, especially this early in the season. It usually happens in the middle towards the end of the year. So many guys got hurt last week.
Yeah.
And it seems like they were all on my teams, which is never a good thing,
Right.
But a couple guys that are going to be on the waiver wire that you should definitely pick up, even if you don't have Adrian Peterson. One of them is Niall Davis, and every time I watched him run the ball last week and scored 2 touchdowns for the Chiefs, and I had Jamal Charles starting, I wanted to punch my TV because I just hate it when that happens. It happens so frequently,
Right.
But Jamal Charles is out for a month. This guy is going to give you 4 games. I even tell a lot of people that pick the guy up on your waiver wire, and then talk to the guy who has Jamal Charles and see what kind of deal you can work out for him. Because he doesn't want Jamal Charles sitting on his bench for 4 weeks. You know what? Because if you started Jamal Charles, chances are you're either 0-2 or you're 1-1. I'll guarantee you're probably not 2-0 unless you have some really good other players.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go 4 weeks without losing your best player.
Right.
So if you can get, a second, like a second tier running back, or even a second tier wide receiver, it's definitely a smart idea, because a lot of those Jamal Charles owners are fed up, and who's to say when he comes back he's 100% healthy.
Right, absolutely. Other injury news: RG3, his no surgery is required, but what they were saying on the Evil Empire Network, the 4-letter network, ESPN, that one of the doctors on there said that this injury with rehab would get him healthy by the last week of the season. So he's basically done for the year. And they say he'll be back next year at full 100%. But what would you look at quarterback wise that would be out there?
It's I had made my bold prediction of Jake Locker, and then he goes out and has a horrible week.
Yep.
But I still think he's available in leagues because he can run the ball a lot. He's a good pickup. Getting Kirk Cousins. He's only owned in about 0.4% leagues right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays in that West Coast offense that Jay Gruden runs. And he's actually a better fit for that West Coast offense than RG3 is.
Okay.
It's all predicated on reading defenses and then getting the ball out of your hand as quickly as possible.
Okay.
And Kirk Cousins is actually a better quarterback when it comes to that. You saw last week, he was very proficient in that Washington offense. They have some weapons on there. Granted, the majority of them got hurt during the game.
Right.
But, there's a couple other guys that I wanted to mention real quick, too. Donald Brown from the Chargers and Kyrie Robinson from the Saints. Both Mark Ingram and Ryan Matthews are going to be out for a short amount of time, probably the 2 weeks to a month period. And those are both guys that are good to pick up. The Chargers especially, that's a team that, I wouldn't have picked them to beat Seattle, and I wouldn't have picked them to put up that many points against Seattle, but they really took it to them.
They did. They really did.
They weren't afraid, and I think that's how you have to play with Seattle. When you're afraid, like the Packers were, and did not throw it Sherman's way out the whole game.
Right.
San Diego's game plan was to throw at Sherman and throw at him offense.
Right. Well, and that
but,
the thing that people forget about with Sherman, he only plays on I think it's on the right side or the left side. He doesn't single up on the number one receiver. He just plays on one side.
See, what San Diego did that's genius, and there's not a lot of teams that can do this. Sherman's a big, tall, lanky guy and not the fastest guy. He's got good recovery speed, but he's got really long arms.
Yeah.
So if you play a short, quick receiver, which Keenan Allen is, on him, where he can't bump him at the line of scrimmage, otherwise he's going to be toast. Not a lot of teams have that kind of talent at their wide receiver corps to be able to do that. He does better against tall, physical wide receivers because, he can get in jump ball situations. They don't get as much separation. That's where he gets a lot of interceptions from.
Mm-hmm.
His forced throws, But the key to that game was Antonio Gates. See, because what Seattle likes to do is they play that zone defense. So when Sherman gets to a certain area, that's why he never gets beat with the deep ball. When he gets to a certain area, he has help, over-the-top help, whether it's Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor. Well, Gates was gashing them so badly that he had a linebacker and a safety on him at all times. So what they would do is they would run Gates away from Sherman and Keenan Allen, which meant Sherman was one-on-one, and he had no help.
Aha.
And that was really, he almost needed a good tight end and a really good receiver to combat that. Barring that, I think they play Denver this week in Denver, and I think they're going to destroy Denver.
You think
Denver did not. I think we're going to see a 31-17 game or 38-24 game. Russell Wilson's looked really good this year. He's a guy that I still wasn't absolutely sold on, even though they won the Super Bowl. You look at the numbers he's put up; they're pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they only had the ball. Go ahead.
One of the guys that you did say would have a big week was Jay Cutler, and he did come through.
In terms of touchdowns, yeah, but it was weird because that game, Cutler took a pretty nasty shot right before halftime. And that really is what propelled him, I think. He got mad.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Cutler is kind of a cocky guy.
Yes.
And he got mad. That game surprised me because it's one of those things where Brandon Marshall, was playing on like one leg.
Yeah, and you said he wasn't going to play.
Which, well, actually, the sources that I talked to said both him and Alshon Jeffrey were 25% to play. And that's why when I did my post on the fan page, I said, pick up Santonio Holmes because it's a late game. So if you bench him or you start him regardless if I know he isn't playing or he is playing, you have that backup they can still pick up. Because if you wait till the late game and you decide he's not playing, who are you going to pick up?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's a good chance they could be gone. So,
looking into week 3 coming up, who do you like? Who do you not like? Who should you pick up? Who should you play? Who should you avoid?
Well, like I said, I kind of talked about our pickups. One quarterback that I really like this week. There's actually 2 that I really like. Number 1 is Matt Stafford. They play Green Bay this week. And Green Bay's pass defense, to say that is bad is an understatement. They made Geno Smith look like Warren Moon. I mean, that's pretty pathetic. And this is one that you're not going to like, but Drew Brees playing against the Vikings. The Saints are 0-2. All the turmoil the Vikings have gone through this week. That's a game that doesn't look well for the Vikings.
And it's in New Orleans.
Yep. And this is going to be an interesting week because I think Castle's going to have a bad game. When I say bad, it's not going to be 4 interceptions bad, but I think we're going to get down early to them, and it's going to be hard for us to get back. So that makes Castle have to pass the ball more, which takes out what we need to do offensively. We need to run the ball, use play action, use some different trick plays with Cordell Patterson.
Yep.
That's how we're going to beat teams.
Yep.
And if they get behind the Saints by like 14 points like they did with New England, they're basically screwed for that game.
Yep.
So the Vikings are getting to the point with, other than Cordell Patterson, there isn't really anybody you want to start. What will be interesting if let's say Peterson plays this week, which I think he will. What if he went off for like 250 yards rushing? Like what would people say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I have a feeling he's gonna have a big game if he plays. Because ultimately, when you're in a situation you're in trouble like that, you want to prove that you're valuable for the organization.
Absolutely.
That they want to take a risk on you. And if you go on and have a huge game, it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward with that. But those two I really like from the running back standpoint. I've been really impressed with DeMarco Murray this year from Dallas. He is normally a pretty injury-prone guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's looked phenomenal. And another guy who is at the top of the list of running backs for fantasy this year, and you probably would never guess it because he plays in a small market team that's a very good team, is Giovanni Bernard from Cincinnati. Especially in PPR leagues, he's a stud. Like last week, he had over 100 yards rushing. He caught the ball like 7 times. He scored once. I mean, you don't see too much of that,
Right.
And in terms of wide receivers, I'm gonna do a shout out to Big Bad Brad here. Definitely start Brandon Marshall this week.
Big gay Brad.
Marshall. And Dez Bryant, I think, is going to have a huge game this week. Obviously, you got Kelvin Johnson. You play him every week, no matter what.
Absolutely.
And I hate to mention this guy because he goes on my list of players I hate the most. The look of him, his name, the team he plays for, Jordy Nelson bothers me.
Yeah.
But I think he's gonna have a big game. He didn't bother me just because he basically lost me last week in one league. I played against him. The guy had like 40-some points. Jordy Nelson.
You almost lost to another guy in this league that only had like 40-some points.
Yeah, because I only had like 54. I was watching that game last night, and then Andrew Luck and the Colts decide now's the good time to implement a running game the whole game. I was like, what? Andrew Luck throws the ball like 70 times. I'm in a close matchup. Oh, yeah, let's do this, And you got to wonder when you watch these games, Like, I seriously think that every team should have a Madden consultant. Basically, someone who's played the Madden football game and is good at it. Because some of these guys calling these plays it's just ridiculous. You watch and, granted, we have assistant coaches calling timeouts when they feel like it, which, that was a bullshit deal. Because
yeah, they got screwed.
I think the referee heard somebody call timeout and, like, they threw for that touchdown. Like, I watched that Jets game. Like, they were ahead 21-3. Why did they decide all of a sudden that we're going to, abandon our game plan and just, go all willy-nilly? Because basically they were passing in like three downs and getting 3 and outs. Weren't taking any time off the clock. And Green Bay is one of those teams for as much as I dislike them, Aaron Rodgers is like, you take Aaron Rodgers off that team, they don't win 2 or 3 games in a year.
No.
Their defense is horrible. Their offensive line is horrible. Their running game, Eddie Lacy, I don't see too many people talking about him much anymore and saying he's a top 5 pick and he's going to have this great year. Granted, he's played the Jets in Seattle so far, which have 2 of the better defenses in the NFL. He's going to get it this week. I mean, they play Detroit. Detroit doesn't have a great pass defense, but their front 4 is pretty good, and they're also cheap and physical. Which is not a good sign for the Green Bay. They don't like to do that. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers makes it to week 6 or 7 this year, I'm going to be surprised because he's getting destroyed. Even David Carr is saying, I had better protection than that. I mean, it's horrible. And in terms of tight ends, I'm going to give you kind of a surprise guy who's so far having a huge year this year is Delaney Walker from Tennessee.
Okay.
He is really the go-to guy that Walker has. And he's put up some impressive numbers. To be honest with you, I'm not high on a lot of the Denver guys this week because normally you play the Denver guys because Peyton Manning throws for 350 and throws 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
So he's going to spread it out. One's going to go to the tight end Thomas. The other one's going to go to the wide receiver Thomas. One might go to Emmanuel Sanders and Monty Ball might run one in. They're playing Seattle this week. And after watching Denver struggle against those Kansas City Chiefs, the way they did at home, that game wasn't in Kansas City. It kind of scares me a little bit because Seattle's hearing all the stuff that they were exposed, that they're not as good as everybody thinks they are. They're going to come out firing in that game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And keep in mind that Manning, it's still in his head. Like,
it's redemption.
Hold it in the Super Bowl.
It's redemption.
And Seattle knows if they go down, to 1 and 2, that they need that home field advantage to be able to get back to the Super Bowl.
Right.
They're not the same team away from Seattle as they are at home, like most teams aren't.
Right.
But if they have to go to San Francisco or they have to go to anything else, I don't think they win. If they would have to go to New Orleans or something to play, I don't think they'd win. That home field advantage is a huge deal to them.
Right, absolutely. Well, we are out of time. We can find, get all your fantasy football updates. The Facebook page is Another Effin' Podcast, Fantasy Football Guru. You'll see a great picture of a gridiron with the Great Bobboo or Great Gazoo on it with the Great Bobboo underneath and that really great, that I don't know where you found that profile picture, but that is glorious.
You know what the weird thing is I was looking at that picture. I'm like, you know what? if I put on a little bit more weight, I would kind of look like that.
Well, I mean,
which is sad.
When in Rome.
But I just thought it was appropriate. I think it's funny. I want to make this comment. Like, why is it when you watch an NFL game, like, okay, a call happens and it's a really bad call, and the referee's going to instant replay and it's against the home team, and you see all these fans looking up at the jumbotron, and then the call goes against their team and they boo them. Like, I've never understood that. I could see if they get a call wrong against your team,
right,
booing the referee or something, but when they actually get it right, and you see it for yourself, and these people are looking up, and they're like, I saw that in Lambeau Field, and they're like, boo, and it's like, what exactly are you booing? That they made the correct call?
They're just mad because
I don't really understand that.
They're just mad because their catheters are almost full. All right, your Twitter is what you created a new Twitter account for the Fantasy Football Guru stuff. What is that
one? It's gonna be AFPFF Guru. That's it.
All right, at AFPFF Guru. You can find him on Twitter. Look for all the updates. Add him as a friend. Annoy him. And it will be glorious. Jeff Bauer, Bobber, the Great Bobboo, thank you so much, man. We will talk to you next week.
Sounds good, Izzy. Thanks.
That was the Fantasy Football Karnak of the show, the Great Bobboo, Jeff Bauer, and all of that great fantasy football information. Once again, the Facebook page for his for his fandom, his fantasy football knowledge, is Another Effin' Podcast, Fantasy Football Guru. And you can find that link on the show page for this, which is Another Effin' Podcast on Facebook. Before we jump into the Cat Perkins interview, I just want to let you know that if you need a vehicle, if you need a car in the Los Angeles area, I can help you out. There's this great little place on the corner of York and Eagle Rock in East LA here, in Eagle Rock, Highland Park area, that is called One Stop Auto. And it's one of these great places where bad credit, no credit, horseshit credit, Izzy Presley credit, they can get you in a vehicle. I'm driving a 2005 BMW, and I love it. I never thought I would be driving a BMW. I'm driving a BMW, and it's all thanks to the good people at One Stop Auto right here in Los Angeles, California. The website is the number one stopautolaA.com. The number one stopautolaA.com. Tell them you heard about them on Another Effin' Podcast with Izzy Presley. And it doesn't matter. You're going to get great service regardless. It's just how they roll. Now coming up, I will have the interview with Cat Perkins from NBC's The Voice, North Dakota native, Minneapolis, his new daughter, I should say. But before we get into that interview, I'd like to play her song for you. The song is called Fearless. It is her first single as a famous person. Yeah, because of what happened with her on The Voice. Team Cat, go Team Cat. Here is Cat Perkins. You can buy this on iTunes. The song is called Fearless, and it is Another Effin' Podcast. That was Fearless from Cat Perkins. You remember her from The Voice on NBC if you are nationwide, and of course, if you are a local Minnesotan and North Dakotan and Iowan, you remember her from a little band called Scarlet Haze. And if you're me, you remember her from Brat Packer Radio. Cat, you are joining us right now, Cat Perkins.
Hi, how are you?
I am excellent. Long time.
I know, seriously. And thank you so much for finally getting me in. And I know it was a long time waiting, and I'm honored to be on your show.
Well, it's an honor to have you. We're trying to get you on here when you were out here, but you guys were kind of like under lock and key, weren't you?
Yeah. That's one way to put it. Yes, we were under lock and key, and we were able to do press, but you had to jump through a bunch of hoops.
Right.
And sometimes it was hard to line up. And, between the people that we knew who we wanted to do interviews with and the people that they wanted us to do it, there was not enough time in the day for everyone.
Oh, I can imagine. Oh, yeah, speaking of interviews, Oz told me to get on you because he needs you on his show when they start back up.
I know. I just messaged him this morning and said that we need to line this up because I'm stoked about his podcast as well.
Yeah, his show is really cool. And, well, I know he was kind of mad that I got you first, but this is another fucking podcast.
Listen,
yes.
You've been waiting for a long time.
I have.
Way, way, way back.
I have. So, well, let's get this bad boy rolling.
All right.
The single, Fearless, tell us about it. How did this come about? Was this an old song? Did you write it, after you got off the show? Talk about it a little bit.
Okay. So I really wanted a song that kind of encapsulated my experience in the voice and my whole last year journey of stepping way outside of the comfort zone and how it kind of paid off and how I felt about it. But I tried to write it. We kept attempting during the voice to write. And my creative process was kind of blocked, if you will. And I had to worry about so much on a daily basis that it wasn't happening. And this awesome writer from your neck of the woods in LA, she came to the table and said that she thought she had something or that she was working on something that would fit. And so she and this lady, so Heather Hawley, Dana Lowry, Dana's like 20 years old from Canada. She's awesome. They got together, wrote this song, and it was a perfect fit. So I decided to roll with what they had written in it. I connected immediately with it.
Well, it is, like you said, a little step outside the box for you because it's really more of a pop song, and you're more of a rock chick.
Yeah, for sure. And I knew that it was going to be taking a chance with some of the fans that more existing fans that knew me as the rocker. And, I was depicted on the show as a rocker until the end, I guess. But to me, I really wasn't worried about genre. I was worried about a good song, and I was worried about lyrical content and something that had a great message to be effective. Because everybody really got to know me. They knew that I can sing. They know that I can sing rock. They know that I can push the envelope in several different ways. So it was more important to me to have a message and be connected lyrically than anything else. And so out came Fearless, and I'm super proud of it. And of course, there's more rock on the way. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, you did release Barracuda also.
Yes. So then we backed it up with Barracuda. If you remember on The Voice, we had what was called the instant Twitter save each week, and I landed down there 3 different times. And when you land in the bottom 3, you have to sing for your life. And Barracuda was one of the songs that I sang to sing for my life, and I got saved. And but those weren't ever released on iTunes, so we decided to go ahead and record it. There was enough demand, and purchased the performing rights to it and released it.
I was kind of curious about that when you ended up in the bottom 3 those times. Did you think it was the songs that you sang, and not as much the performance? I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we've talked about it several different ways, and every week we talked about it. And I just, honestly, if you want to just get down to it, I think that the population, let's just look at that. Look at the numbers in the Midwest. They're just not as compacted as somebody that lives on the East Coast.
Sure.
And I think maybe it was just it. I don't know if it was the song choice. I never felt like it was a bad song choice or really weird. And then also for my Minnesota fans who knew that I was going up against the Minnesota Wild pretty much every single week.
Oh, that's right.
And I think I still had a lot of viewers, but I think I had a lot of DVR people that maybe watched it on Wednesday and then couldn't, they couldn't help me, and they didn't vote because they were supporting their local sports team, which they should, as they should.
Well, you also got to remember a lot of them are following on Twitter at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So they can get on there and vote. So don't blame the Wild too much.
My first time landing in the bottom 3 was landslide, and I just don't think that I don't think people were like, ew, that was a bad song choice. I think it was a perfect song choice, and I could never blame that. So, who knows? But it all worked out for the best, and I think that I feel like a part of me is in a better position than that have gone any farther.
You know, I was kind of curious about the song selections. Do they just give you a list and everybody picks from it, or how does that work?
That's a great question. There is a clearance list that somewhat exists, but we don't really have control at all. The producers choose for us. We had received a list of like 350 tunes in the beginning, saying we had to rank like 15 of those songs of like, if we were to, what kind of artist are we? Here's 15 songs that we would sing. Now, I never ended up with one of those songs on the list. So I think that was just sort of getting their idea of who we wanted to be on the show and how we wanted to be depicted. Because, I never ever sang one that was actually on that list. But there were some limits, too. I mean, there's no you can't sing Led Zeppelin. You can't sing Beatles. You can't sing Michael Jackson. You can't...
sync rights.
Exactly, and they don't give them up to network television, so there's limitations. But in the end, as we dwindled down and we got into the top 20, top 10, top 8, they were more open to our feedback about if we got a song that we really just didn't want to do, that we could speak up. And that happened to me. After the top 8, I believe it was, they gave me Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's not easy.
It's not. And it's honestly almost impossible to do as a solo song.
Right.
And I couldn't, I had like 24 hours to try to attempt this in our first taping and our first rehearsal. And I tried my hardest, but it was like impossible. And Paul Merkovich, who is the band leader, amazing dude, used to be part of Whitesnake, by the way. Long haired rocker dude.
Yep.
He was like, no, we can't do Bohemian. We can't do it. We got to figure out something else. So then I brought the idea of switching Get Lucky into the rock version from the pop version. And so I really got some say that week. But otherwise it was, we just kind of did what we were told.
Did they just kind of like, okay, you're a girl, here's girl songs, and this is all you're going to sing?
I think they always leaned that way with everyone. But I don't know. They were open to whatever.
So if you would have said, fuck you, I want the Ace of Spades, they would have given you the Ace of Spades?
Well, I think so. I think if I could have proven to them that I could kick ass on that song and make it my own, then, they were kind of open to that at all times, as like I said, as it got down.
Right.
Before top 20, screw that. They didn't listen to you. They didn't want your input on anything. They just gave you songs. Now,
why did you choose Adam?
When it came down to it, and I was sitting there with the decision, it's Adam and Usher, between Adam, Usher, and Shakira, it just felt right in my gut. I just I was so kind of out of my mind and nervous and like, holy crap, 3 chairs turned around. That sort of stunning, like, I just wanted one to turn around.
Yeah.
And it happened. So I was trying to kind of at least feel my gut, reaction. But then Adam's, if you remember the episode, Adam's, like, his pitch to have me on his team was better than the other two, by hands down. They weren't very well spoken. Usher thought I was a country singer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusion happening. So I felt like Adam understood and in the moment, and he was like, he basically was standing in front of me going, duh, pick me.
Well, I know, like, Shakira was just like, I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I just like, well, what about her?
No, it was weird when you watch it back, and all is like, I have my own makeup, I have my own production, I was like, great. I don't know, it just didn't feel like she was even vying for my attention. I don't know.
Do you, looking back on it now, do you think having a female coach would have helped you?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think my fate would have been a lot different if I would have been on either one of those other teams. I think I wouldn't have gone as far.
Okay.
I don't know. That's just judging from my gut. Obviously, the universe spoke, but I think Adam was the most personable besides Blake out of all 4 coaches. So I felt like I got a lot of personal attention. I feel like he was completely Team Cat. He loved my approach. He loved where we were going with that. He loved having that token rocker. And and it all worked for him, and which just made me feel so special. And there was one time we went into rehearsals for I think I was singing Open Arms, and he was like, I know you can sing this. I don't even want to hear it. Let's just jam. And he started playing Metallica.
Nice.
And we like jammed on Master of Puppets. Of course, you don't see that on television, and
Right.
footage is somewhere, but it was so cool. Like we just wasted the time, like 45 minutes. It was awesome. He like jumped on the drums.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
When you did Open Arms, was there any point where you wanted to put on a fake nose just to go for that Steve Perry look?
Yes. Yes, I did. And tight red pants.
Oh, that would have ruled.
They had the way too high a waist.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I really could have gotten Steve Perry to tweet about it too, but then I looked and he doesn't even have Twitter, so.
Oh, that's
I mean,
right.
he does, but I don't think he runs his own.
Or he just doesn't even use it that much. Now, what exactly do the coaches do? I mean, do they help you with the songs? I mean, well, obviously help you with the songs, but like,
yeah.
What do they do?
We had a good at least 45 minutes each week with them, and with me, Adam really, he always wanted to hear what I was bringing after I had rehearsed it on my own, and then he just kind of tweaked my dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end, when it was crunch time and we would see them literally moments after we received our song, then he was way more involved in the arrangement and how we should cut it down, because we only sang, I think the longest segment we ever did was 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So we mainly revolved around that 2-minute window of a song, and we wanted to get those best bits of that. And that took a lot of the time of just getting those edits down and getting that arrangement to feel right, and so it didn't feel like it was this cut up, bullshit. But,
Right. Well, hey, at least you had you had training for that in Brat Pack Radio with the song segments. See, Ryan Lance, you are a mad genius.
Ryan Lance, I so badly wanted to do some sort of medley if I could have on that show. How fun would that have been?
Oh, Easy Lover would have ruled.
Yes.
One thing I was really kind of curious about with the show, we have a mutual friend who was offered to try out for when CBS was doing Rockstar. It was the NXS one, and he said no, because part of their stipulation was they control his career for like a year. And you basically sign all of your rights away. I mean, what is it like on The Voice? What do they, what do they expect from you?
That beginning contract stuff, I mean, it can get a little scary, but it's one thing about that show is that they were always on our side. It was not like you hear these experiences from the other shows, the other networks. They really had our backs on this, and they really wanted us to flourish as artists beyond the show. And so everything was very fair in the end. And even though you gave up a lot of control throughout the season of it, obviously,
right.
You have to, and you should, because you're being part of an awesome machine that if you can come out on the other side of that, it will help you. So there was a little bit of sacrifice, but really not much. More just a time sacrifice to where I had to wait a little bit to release music, but I'm free and clear, and I in return I feel like I want to promote them because they did so much for me. Like, I don't feel bad saying watch the show or people go audition for it. It's great. I love that I feel that way after going through it. I really am speechless about how well I was treated and how things come out really positively on the other end.
Well, and you look at it on the back end too. It's like you just did that show in was it somewhere in North Dakota? You sold out in 4 hours.
Yeah, in Western North Dakota, Medora.
Yeah.
Yes. Sold one out in under 4 hours. Sold a second one out in the same location within a day after that, and it's a 2,800 seater.
Wow.
And then this weekend we were in this situation of like a football field.
Uh-huh.
So there was really like no. I don't think we could have ever sold out. Like, there's no sellout point there. So it was just kind of like however many people can fit on this field. And we ended up like nearing 5,000 tickets.
That's like hairball numbers.
For little old me from tiny little Midwest, North Dakota girl who lives in Minnesota, I still can't quite grasp what happened because Saturday was just like one of the most epic. I'll post a video up on my Facebook. I need to get it from the guy that took it, but we had like 5,000 people saying, "We want cat, we want cat." It was like mind blowing. I just can't believe that many people want to see me sing and me to share my music, and I don't know. It's just a whole new level.
Now, what is this going to mean for Scarlet Haze? Are you going to like re-release the Scarlet Haze under your name?
I don't know. It's a great question. What should we do? Maybe we should put it up to your fans.
I would say being somebody who does marketing and being somebody who does management and stuff, I would say the smart thing to do would be to re-release it under your name. You keep the same band because you have a badass. You're still playing with the same band, correct?
I got some of it. It's like half of Scarlet Haze, and then the producer from the last Scarlet Haze record, Jeremy Tapero, who was from the band Attention, he came in on drums, and I've never known him as a drummer. Like I've known him as a guitar player, bass player, singer. I knew he could play the drums, and he played on the Scarlet record, but it's been such a treat to play with him live. He's an amazing drummer. He's a musician that gets drumming. Like there's a difference, and he's added so much to the live show. It's mind blowing. And then out of nowhere, we find Joe Harrier on bass, who came recommended from Ian Allison because Ian Allison initially signed on to be part of my live shows, and
that dude is a monster, by the way.
He's a monster, and he's like, I've played with him a little bit in we went overseas together, and we did some cool work, just kind of jobber work, but he got this awesome gig with Jeremy, is it Messersmith? Is that how you say it?
He was just on Letterman with him, right?
Yes, so they really have been taken off, so he subbed himself out of my band with this guy, Joe Harrier, and Joe's amazing, and he's young and awesome. He's from Detroit, Michigan, and he just brings another cool rhythm element, so I think we're locked in with this configuration. So we got Casey Smith, Eric Warner from Scarlet Haze, myself, Joe Harrier, Elliot Blaufus on keys. I don't know if you know him or not.
No, I don't.
And Jeremy Tapero on drums. Elliot Blaufus comes to us from Eric Hutchinson band, kind of this folky singer-songwriter band, but Elliot can rock, and he's playing some awesome keys. He's got dreads down to his butt. And he's nice. Amazing. And the whole vibe of everyone is just like my dream vibe of a band. We can travel all together. They make you laugh. Yeah, it's been really
But you're
great.
stuck with Casey. You couldn't get rid of Casey.
No. I tried so hard to get rid of Casey Smith.
Casey, we love you, brother.
Love you, Casey. He's like the brother I never wanted.
I think he gets that a lot, but at least you were able to get rid of a Duff. Oh, what else do we got here?
Hey-o.
Duff, we love you too. It's all good fun. So you got a big show coming up in Minneapolis next weekend. Today is not next weekend, 2 weeks, right?
Yes. So September 26th is the big Minneapolis show, and it's our first attempt here in the cities. We're doing it Mill City Nights, which I know some people have some love-hate relationship with that place, but they fixed a lot of the sightlines, and I actually am a huge fan of seeing shows there. So I hope people come and check me out there because it's a really great venue. It was my first pick. I mean, I had a couple of choices here, and I really wanted to do it there. So downtown Minneapolis obviously is kind of one of my favorite spots. So I hope people come. I'm bringing in another girl from The Voice. We're bringing in Kristen Merlin, who finished in the top 5 with me, and she's going to do a set before me. And we got cryogenic effects. We've got confetti. We've got fog. We've got dry ice. we are pulling out all the stops for Minneapolis.
The only thing you were missing is my Ace Frehley tribute band.
Yes, come on over. Bring it in.
Well, we'll do that when you come out to LA. Yeah, speaking of that, is there any tour plans right now? What are you looking at?
Yes. Well, right now we're basically within the 600-mile radius from Minneapolis. So the farthest right now on the books is Chicago. And, of course, the North Dakota. That's where we went 600 miles to the west. We're going to be doing a date in Boston here in November. So we're going to branch out a little bit. So I was supposed to come to LA here in September, but the logistics didn't work out, and I wanted to really tour right here, right now until Christmas time. So we'll see, but I'm gonna try to get out to you for sure.
Well, hopefully we can get you out here. Kat, it was an
Please.
absolute pleasure having you on here. This is Kat Perkins from The Voice, and Scarlett Hayes, Brat Pack Radio.
Yes.
And Midwestern treasure. What can we say? It was a true honor. And when you're out here, please come by. We'll have you in studio and catch up even more. So, where can they find? Well, it's an absolute honor. Where can they find you? Social media, your website, iTunes, all that good stuff.
Everything online is Kat Perkins Music. Twitter's Kat Perkins Music. Facebook, we've got the website is katperkinsmusic.com. Instagram, everything is Kat Perkins Music, and I think if you Google it at this point, it actually comes up, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing that pops up. So
you might want to if you join me, you're going to get quite the personal look into my life. So be prepared that you get like a daily dose of Kat.
Well, folks, you have that to look forward to. Trust me, I've seen it front and center, and it is quite the experience. What can I say, Kat? Thank you so much. Another fucking podcast. Was honored to have you. All right, we'll talk soon. Of course, Kat Perkins from The Voice, right here exclusively on Another Effin' Podcast. I am out of time. Don't forget the sponsors, rockstarleatherworks.com. You can get a car here in LA at onestopautola.com. This number onestopautola.com. Check them out. Hit me up on the social media places. It is Facebook as Another Effin' Podcast, and Twitter is Izzy_Presley. And, of course, the website is IzzyPresleyProductions.com. If you want to donate, that's izzy.presley@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out the Three Sides of the Coin podcast if you like your little Kiss band talk and stuff. Very interesting every week. And, of course, my other show on Spreaker, which you should go to Spreaker right now that you're listening on, or you could be listening on iTunes. Subscribe on iTunes. Leave feedback. Give good feedback, all that kind of stuff, but also go to Spreaker and follow on Spreaker, because you'll not only get this show, you'll also get Under the Covers, my weekly radio show. I will see you next week, featuring from Cinderella, the guitar guru himself, Jeff LaBar. I will see you then, and folks, don't forget, I do love you all.